In this episode, we build directly on secure configuration baselines and focus on what happens after they are defined. Designing a strong baseline is only the beginning. Real environments change constantly, and those changes introduce configuration drift. Drift occurs when systems move away from their approved baseline over time, whether intentionally through change activity or unintentionally through error or oversight. If drift is not controlled, even the best baseline becomes meaningless. By the end of this discussion, you should understand how monitoring detects drift, how remediation workflows restore alignment, and how disciplined change management prevents repeated configuration breakdowns. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Configuration drift is not always malicious. It often begins with legitimate operational activity. An administrator may adjust a setting to troubleshoot an issue and forget to revert it. A team may install a component that modifies system behavior without updating the baseline. A software update may alter configuration parameters automatically. Over time, these incremental adjustments create divergence from the secure standard. The risk lies not only in the individual change, but in the accumulation of unnoticed deviations. On the exam, questions about weakening security posture frequently involve subtle drift rather than dramatic compromise. Monitoring is the first layer of drift control. Monitoring compares current system configurations against defined baselines on a recurring basis. This comparison can occur through automated configuration assessment tools or centralized management platforms. The essential principle is consistency. If monitoring is infrequent or inconsistent, drift can persist undetected for long periods. Continuous or scheduled monitoring ensures that deviations are identified promptly. On the exam, strong answers often emphasize regular validation rather than one-time reviews. Effective drift monitoring requires clear definition of what constitutes noncompliance. Not every configuration change represents unacceptable risk. Governance processes define which settings are mandatory and which allow flexibility. When monitoring detects deviation from a mandatory baseline requirement, it should trigger action. Without defined thresholds, monitoring results can become noisy and overwhelming. On the exam, recognizing the importance of defined criteria helps distinguish between mature control approaches and vague monitoring commitments. Once drift is detected, remediation workflows restore alignment. Remediation is not merely resetting configurations blindly. It involves understanding why the deviation occurred, determining whether it was authorized, and applying corrective action. In some cases, remediation may involve reverting to baseline. In others, it may require updating the baseline to reflect a legitimate change. Structured workflows ensure that deviations are tracked, resolved, and documented. On the exam, when analyzing responses to configuration gaps, answers that include investigation, documentation, and controlled correction demonstrate maturity. Automation enhances remediation efficiency. Automated tools can revert unauthorized changes or reapply baseline settings consistently. Automation reduces response time and human error. However, automation must operate within defined governance processes to avoid disrupting legitimate operations. For example, automatically reverting a configuration change that supports a business-critical update could create operational issues. On the exam, balanced answers that combine automation with oversight often reflect stronger reasoning. Change discipline is the preventive side of drift control. Many configuration deviations originate from poorly managed changes. A disciplined change management process requires documenting proposed changes, assessing their impact, obtaining approval, and validating outcomes. When change processes integrate baseline review, the risk of unintended drift decreases. For example, if a system update requires modifying a security setting, that modification should be reviewed and incorporated into the baseline if appropriate. On the exam, questions about preventing repeated drift often point towards strengthening change governance rather than increasing monitoring alone. Another important concept is separation of duties. When the same individual can modify configurations and approve changes without oversight, risk increases. Separation of duties introduces accountability and reduces the likelihood of unauthorized or risky adjustments. Even in smaller environments, peer review or managerial oversight can provide similar control. On the exam, governance-related answers frequently incorporate role clarity and approval workflows to strengthen configuration integrity. Metrics once again provide visibility into control health. Organizations may measure the percentage of systems compliant with baseline standards, the frequency of drift events, or the average time required to remediate deviations. Trends in these metrics reveal whether drift is decreasing or increasing over time. Persistent drift may signal underlying issues such as unclear standards, inadequate training, or insufficient automation. On the exam, when asked how to evaluate configuration control effectiveness, answers referencing measurable trends and remediation timelines often demonstrate stronger understanding. Drift control also supports audit readiness and incident response. If auditors request evidence of configuration compliance, organizations should be able to provide monitoring reports, remediation logs, and change records. During incident response, investigators often examine configuration history to identify anomalies or unauthorized changes. A disciplined monitoring and remediation system provides historical visibility that supports rapid analysis. On the exam, connecting configuration control to both prevention and detection strengthens your reasoning. Cloud and hybrid environments add complexity to drift control. Infrastructure as code and automated deployments may alter configurations rapidly. Drift can occur when manual adjustments bypass defined templates. Monitoring tools must therefore evaluate both live configurations and underlying deployment templates. Maintaining alignment between templates and deployed instances is critical. On the exam, when presented with modern deployment scenarios, answers emphasizing template validation and automated compliance checks reflect awareness of dynamic environments. Human behavior also plays a role in drift. Administrators under time pressure may prioritize rapid fixes over procedural compliance. Encouraging a culture that values documentation and accountability reduces the likelihood of unmanaged changes. Training and leadership support reinforce disciplined behavior. While technical controls are essential, governance maturity also depends on consistent human practices. On the exam, solutions that combine process improvement with technical enforcement often demonstrate holistic thinking. Another aspect of drift control involves prioritization. Not all deviations carry equal risk. Some configuration changes may introduce high-impact vulnerabilities, while others have minimal security implications. Effective programs categorize drift by severity and address the most critical deviations first. This risk-based prioritization ensures efficient resource allocation. On the exam, answers that incorporate risk-based remediation typically reflect stronger governance alignment than those that treat all deviations equally. Continuous improvement remains central. Monitoring results can reveal patterns, such as recurring deviations in specific system types or frequent changes during certain operational cycles. Analyzing these patterns allows organizations to refine baselines, improve automation, or adjust change workflows. Drift control is not a static enforcement activity. It is an adaptive cycle that strengthens resilience over time. On the exam, recognizing this iterative improvement dimension distinguishes advanced reasoning from surface-level compliance thinking. In conclusion, controlling configuration drift requires integrated monitoring, structured remediation workflows, and disciplined change management. Monitoring detects deviations from defined baselines. Remediation restores alignment and documents corrective action. Change discipline prevents unnecessary or unmanaged alterations. Metrics provide visibility and accountability. Governance oversight ensures consistent enforcement. Together, these elements transform secure configuration from a static definition into a living control system that adapts to operational change while preserving security intent. Understanding this integrated approach equips you to analyze exam scenarios with confidence and appreciate how disciplined configuration management protects enterprise environments over the long term.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.